have exemption from 196 subsection 4 second proviso and 196(5). You don't have any exemption from section 196 subsection 1, section 196 subsection 2, section 196 subsection 3. Section 196 subsection 1 says that a company cannot have a managing director and a manager at the same time. 196 subsection 2 says that the tenure of a managing director cannot be for a period of more than 5 years. 196 subsection 3 says that following persons will be eligible to be appointed as a managing director, and there this requirement of a person above the age of 70 years comes in. That is not acceptable.
But
So
that can be made only at AGM or that can be done at the EGM?
Anywhere. It says only general meeting. It doesn't say annual general.
But all the companies are looking at the AGM only.
That's more convenient. Why should I incur cost of calling another general meeting? It's not prior approval. Even post approval is okay. So why should I wait till why should I conduct a general meeting? I can wait till the next AGM to ratify.
But the article says it can be done only at the AGM.
Then you abide by your articles. See, the idea is that it has to be done at the first ensuing general meeting after the appointment. After the appointment, whichever general meeting comes first, whether it is AGM or EGM, you should do it there. If your articles are in contrary to the provisions of the Act, the Act will prevail.
Act will
Prevail. You will have to abide by the Act. If the Act says that it has to be done at the ensuing general meeting, and your article says it has to be done only at the annual general meeting, then you will have to follow the Act.
In case of reappointment of a 50-year-old company, the directors are appointed for the last 20 years. Every 5 years they are get appointed. That can be made only at the AGM. Why at EGM?
I am not asking you to do it in EGM. I am saying do it at AGM.
Can it be done at EGM?
I am saying yes, it can be done.
But the article says it can be done only at the AGM. Can you do it in EGM?
I am saying when is the appointment taking place? Say the appointment takes place, reappointment takes place sometime in November 2015. And there is a general meeting convened in February 2016. But your AGM will come sometime in September 2016. You don't have to wait till your AGM to get this ratified. The first opportunity when you are going to shareholders, you will have to get it approved at the very first opportunity. We now move on to the director's report. One good thing that the companies at 2013 will do is to ensure, because in case of smaller companies, it is either the auditors themselves or the consultants who are responsible for even drafting the director's report. Though it is a document theoretically required to be prepared by the directors themselves, but generally it is drafted by the professionals. Assuming that my statement is correct, I am sure some of you would like to contradict it, but assuming that my statement is correct, one good thing which companies in 2013 will do to all of us is that overnight it will turn us into authors. We will become people smart at even literature, because director's report is now become an act, it is now a work of literature than a work of law. So much is required to be written, so much is required to be put in, that your English language will be put to test rather than your actual governance of the companies. I am sure you will agree with me once I take you through the various provisions and the various reporting requirements that you are required to include in a director's report. Friends, director's report, if you remember, just to recapitulate, under the earlier law, it was section 217 which governed what all information that you are required to put in a director's report. Under the new law, it is section 134 and the various rules which tells you what all information you are required to put in a director's report. Let us quickly see what all information am I required to put in a director's report. The extract of annual return as provided under section 92 subsection 3. This has to be fully disclosed in my director's report. And this will take at least, in case of large companies, 4 to 7 pages of my director's report. The biggest casualty of the companies in 2013, if there is anything, it is the English language. Maybe somebody suggested, Lord Macaulay or somebody suggested that English is not for Indians. And then he would not have been more true than the kind of language that has been used in the companies in 2013. What do you mean by an extract? The dictionary meaning of an extract is, to say in Hindi, it is ansh. It is a portion out of the whole. Right? That is an extract. You extract from something which is already there. Something which is there, you extract. An extract of your minutes. Your minutes are written, a portion of the minutes is given as an extract. An extract of your resolution. Your resolution is already there, you give it as an extract. Right? Extract of what is required to be written? Extract of? When do you prepare your director's report? When you approve the accounts? When do you approve your accounts? 1 month before the AGM date? When do you prepare your annual return? After the AGM? When the annual return itself is not prepared, how do you take an extract of it? You could have simply said that you give information required under this form, required in form MGT9. Why do you use words extract of an annual return when the annual return itself is not there? Well, don't mind the language too much, ignoring the language. There is a form prescribed MGT9. What all information that you are required to put in the annual return, a part of that information has to be compiled in this form MGT9 and it is required to be put in your director's report also. Clear? These points number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These points, and you can see after each point there is also another number. 1, 2, 3, 6, 6, 7, 11, 12. Right? These numbers on the right hand side are the numbers of the information in the annual return, in the form which is prescribed for the annual return. It is number 1 of MGT9, number 1 of MGT7. MGT7 is the annual return form. Number 2 of MGT9, number 2 of MGT7. 3, 3, 4 is number 6 of MUT 7. 4 is so this is how a part of your annual return will also become a part of your director's report. Duplication, sheer duplication. I will not take you through each of these information, but 2 points I will touch. Point number 4 here, shareholding pattern. You will have to provide shareholding pattern category wise. Shareholding pattern for your promoters, shareholding patterns of your key managerial personnel, shareholding pattern of top 10 shareholders of the company. In case of private limited companies, all the shareholding, the entire shareholding is those of promoters only. So you don't have to bother, everything is covered there. Right? Imagine a company which has shareholding of people other than promoters also. Right? So you give information, you give shareholding pattern of promoters, you give shareholding pattern of KMPs, you also give shareholding pattern of top 10 companies, top 10 shareholders. When I give the shareholding pattern of top 10 shareholders, when I give the shareholding pattern of top of my promoters, the immediate question that comes to my mind is, this pattern as on which date? As on which date do I provide this pattern? Annual return is required to be prepared with reference to the... No, AGM date it was previously. Now it is with reference to the year ending, financial year ending date. So it is with reference to 31st of March. So every information in annual return has to be as on 31st of March. What do I provide? See the question, I hope you will be able to understand this more clearly. You have to give list of top 10 shareholders. Top 10 shareholders as on which date?
31st March.
As on 31st March. So I take out my list of shareholders. I take out who are the top 10 shareholders as on that date. What is the information that I am required to give of these top 10 shareholders? Shareholding at the beginning of the year, changes during the year, shareholding at the close of the year. These top 10 shareholders may or may not have been my shareholders at the beginning of the year. They may have been. They may have acquired during the year. Assuming that 8 of them are my shareholders at the beginning of the year, I read their shareholding at the beginning of the year. I give whatever changes have happened during the year, and I give shareholding at the end of the year. 2 shareholders have come in new. They have displaced some other 2 people. So, in respect of these 2 people, I give shareholding at the beginning of the year 0. Changes during the year, I give whatever acquisitions they have done, and then their shareholding at the end of the year. Friends, besides these 3 information, there is one more 4th information which I am supposed to give, which is the date of separation. What do you mean by the date of separation? The date of separation means the date on which I no longer am a top 10 shareholder. When I am no longer a top 10 shareholder, then it now changes my thinking that I am not required to give the list only as on 31st of March, but I am required to give list of all top 10 shareholders who have been my top 10 shareholders any time during the year. So I start with the list of top 10 shareholders at the beginning of the year.
First April is given the year, thank you.
Yes. So I hope the top 10 list is not necessarily limited only to 10 people. It may go to 17, 18, 25 people even. And then changes have to be given date-wise. Which means if you are acquiring almost every other day, all those dates will have to be mentioned. All that I am trying to tell you is, you can just imagine the length of your director's report. Right? The last point, 7. Penalties, punishments and compounding of offences. This is the heading. I mean, when I read it for the first time about a year and a half back, I was just wondering which penalties and penalties under which act. Because these penalties also have to be driven director-wise. If a director has violated the motor vehicles provision and has been charged to a penalty of 100 rupees under the motor vehicles act, am I required to disclose that? Well, of course, the answer is no. It is only penalties, provisions are compounded under the Companies Act which you are required to disclose. But then this is a very serious disclosure. Compounded is a very common day phenomenon. Majority of the companies subject themselves to compounding. And whenever compounding is done, all that information is now required to be disclosed. How much penalty, how much compounded amount has been charged on you and on which director, all those details have to be provided. You as an auditor will have to take a declaration from your directors and you will be knowing even otherwise that they have not been subjected to any compounding or any penalties under the provisions of the Companies Act. But this information is surely going to trouble many companies because I am aware of several companies which have subjected themselves to compounding.
So this penalty coming during the year only, no?
During the year. Everything is during the year, right? The next information that you are required to disclose is the number of meetings of your board. It is only the number of meetings. Don't be overzealous and disclose the dates of the meetings. You may need to change them later.
But the new secretarial audit standards require the dates to be mentioned as well.
Very interesting. Are secretarial standards applicable to private limited companies as well?
Yes, it is more than 25 lakhs without tax.
Are secretarial standards applicable even to private limited companies? Why I am saying this? There are only 2 secretarial standards which have been notified. Secretarial standards with respect to board meetings, secretarial standards with respect to general meetings. Secretarial standards are more stringent than the provisions of the Companies Act itself. They say more than what the Companies Act requires to do. They want you to do something more than what the Companies Act itself requires you to do. Naturally, because if it's a standard is coming, it will certainly be something different from the requirements of the Act. Now, I have just shown you an exemption in case of private limited companies that section 101 to section 107 and 109 will not apply to a private limited company. When the provision of the Act itself will not be applicable to the private limited companies, where is the question of a secretarial standard in relation to those general meetings being applicable to such? When the liberal provisions of the Act, as I said, secretarial standard is more stringent. When the liberal provisions of the Act itself has been done away by the government saying that you don't have to comply with this, how can you expect a private limited company to comply with the more stringent provisions which has been provided? When the secretarial standards were notified, this exemption notification was not there. This exemption notification came on 5th of June. I am sure and I am aware the institute and the government are again reworking on this, and very soon we will have a clarification on this, whether secretarial standard, at least in case of general meetings, will apply to private limited. And can you expect, do you think a private limited company with only husband and wife as director and husband and wife as shareholder will send you agenda notes? Government is thinking of even doing away with notices and minutes in case of these small companies, and do you expect them to give notes on agenda items, details of what agenda they are going to discuss?
Most of them are having meeting every day.
Most of them are having meeting at their home.
Every day, every minute, they are having
That's
meeting.
what I am saying. You don't even have to, we will have to be practical. I am sure these standards are relevant only for companies of a particular size, companies of some particular stature. Making them applicable across the board may give pride to the institute, but will certainly not do justice to their corporates, or will certainly not do justice to the entities which we are seeking to regulate. Well, I am very, very hopeful that a clarification will come on this. Director's responsibility statement. I will show you what changes have come in the director's responsibility statement within 5 minutes time. I will take you through the other process. statement of declaration given by independent directors under 149. This requirement is applicable to listed companies and all those companies which are required to have independent directors on their board. You don't have to reproduce the entire declaration. You only have to give a statement that a declaration under section 149 sits by an independent director stating that he fulfills all the criteria of independence has been received by the company. That's all, right? In case of listed companies and other prescribed companies, company's policy on directors' appointment and remuneration, including criteria for determining qualifications, positive attributes, independence of a director and other matters provided under section 278 subsection. Your entire, if you are a company which is a listed company or which is required to have a nomination and remuneration committee, then your entire remuneration policy is required to be disclosed in the director's report. There is a school of thought which says only salient features of the remuneration policy is required to be disclosed. There is another school of thought which says that the entire compensation policy is required to be disclosed. To be on the safe side, I would suggest that the entire remuneration policy be disclosed in the director's report. Explanation or comments on every qualification, reservation or adverse remark or disclosure made by the auditor in his report or by the PCS in his secretarial report. Same as the earlier law. Even under the earlier law, if your auditor's report contained any qualification, the directors had an obligation to explain those qualifications. Now they have an additional obligation. If they happen to be one of those companies for which even secretarial audit is applicable, and if the secretarial auditor has given any qualification, the director's report will also have to provide explanation on the comments, adverse comments made by the secretarial auditor. Particulars of loans, guarantees or investments under section 186. I would have expected the ministry to come out with a standard format on this. When I asked, what do you mean by particulars? When I say particular, see, investments, you are disclosing in your notes to accounts, even under accounting standard 13. Investments at the close of the year. But loans, you don't give party-wise details of the loans in your annual accounts. So when I say particulars, what do you mean by particulars? One of you will say name of the party. Other one will say outstanding as on the balance sheet date. Third person will say, sir, interest rate. Fourth person will say whether it is secured or unsecured. Fifth person will say other terms and conditions. Sixth person will say date of repayment. Some of you may miss out any of these. If you miss out any of these, the regulator will say, boss, this was a very important particular which you were supposed to disclose and you did not disclose, so you violated this provision. Why don't you come out with a standard format? Why do you leave it to the discretion of the company to choose and decide what particulars I need to do?
They have to work for that.
1.5 years is good enough time for them to come out with that.
They want us to work.
Fine. What I am trying to say is this again. See, having worked with the department so closely, I understand how notices and on what reasons notices come out. Even if your company has failed to disclose, say, the repayment of the loan, they will issue a notice and say, tell you that it was a very important particular which you were required to do, you did not. And hence you have violated the particular clause. But then particulars of loans you will have to disclose in your director's report. See the interesting part. For the last 60 years, I have not given party-wise details of my loans to even my shareholders for all these years. And today, I will have to give particulars of all those loans, individual loans details to my shareholders under the director's report. My accounts does not contain that information, but my director's report will have to contain that information. Had my accounts contained that information, I could have understood. A very, very onerous requirement, and I am sure companies will really find it very, very difficult. अब तो नाम भी नहीं बदल पाओगे. एक बार डायरेक्टर्स रिपोर्ट में दे दिया तो नाम भी चेंज नहीं हो पाएगा बाद में, right? Particulars of contracts or arrangements with related parties referred to in subsection 1 of section 188. Thankfully, we have a format prescribed. AOC 2, if I am not wrong, is the format which has been prescribed. This AOC 2 is divided in two parts. Part number 1 says details of all those material related party transactions which are at an arm's length price, and part B says details of all those material related party transactions which are not at arm's length price. अब प्रॉब्लम यही है, ज्यादा पढ़ते हैं तो ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम लगता है. Material related party transactions, and the word material in the Companies Act is like that दाग of surf excel, ढूंढते रह जाओगे. It is nowhere found in Companies Act what is material. The word material is nowhere defined in the Companies Act. Why do you use words which you don't define? The word material is defined in clause 49 of the listing agreement. I am not a listed company, this is applicable to all the companies. So perhaps material means all those transactions to which Rule 15 is applicable and where you need a shareholders resolution, ordinary resolution of shareholders, if you happen to be one of those related party transactions for which shareholders approval is needed. If it is at an arm's length price, again, it is only those related party transactions which have been entered during the year which are required to be disclosed. Not those related party transactions which are continuing from earlier years that need to be disclosed. Let us be very clear on this. For example, you have given a place on rent. You have given a place on rent. This place on rent has been given for a period of 3 years. You will keep on receiving rent from this related party month after month. In 1 year you are receiving say X amount. Another year you are receiving Y amount. The first year in which you enter the rent agreement, that is the year in which you are required to disclose it. Not every time when you receive the rent. Receipt of rent is not the agreement. It is the contract, the rent agreement which you have entered, that is required to be disclosed under related party transactions. Right? Clauses I, J, K and L. I am not dwelling on them because they are verbatim same as the earlier section 217. We have understood these provisions for last 50 years, so I don't have to take you through them. Verbatim, even under the earlier law, you were required to read this information.
So here, taking of loan from directors, relatives, all this will not fall because they are not part of an AD.
Absolutely. But they have already come under the earlier living law. See, first of all, एक चीज बहुत clear है. As you rightly said, cases of loans will not come under this because it's not a related party. Giving of loans, that will also not come under this because that is also not a related party transaction. But that may be covered under the earlier one because 186 covers that. So there you may have to listen. Right? Conservation of energy, the earlier law also had it, but the format has changed. So you will have to now comply with the new format. Now, this is very, very interesting. A statement indicating development and implementation of risk management policy for the company, including identification therein of elements of risks, if any, which in the opinion of the board may threaten the existence of the company. This was already there as a measure of corporate governance in clause 49 in case of listed companies. On the right hand side, I have listed out several provisions of clause 49 where this risk management policy or the risk policy or the risk management committee have been prescribed. Imagine this statement in case of an husband-wife private limited company. 2 shareholders, 2 directors. They kindly provide a risk management policy. Normal काम धंधा तो होता नहीं है risk management policy.
Risk in marriage as well.
I mean, making these provisions across the board applicable to all the companies perhaps is not applied. I am sure they should have thought And at least some of these provisions are not at all relevant for private companies. What risk management are you talking? I am sure risk means not risk pertaining to shareholders or not risk pertaining to directors, but risk pertaining to the business. Business risks also, if you have to list out, in case of small private limited companies where there is no
They
more.
include also, you know, those derivative contracts they enter into, these sort of things.
I am saying if business, that is what is business risk that we are talking about. If your company is of such a size where there is some amount of business, where business risks are, for example, in case of a property now.